This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hello, Detroit. Welcome to Wanna Bet, the newest gambling podcast on Detroit Sports Podcast Network. This might be a more abbreviated episode. I kind of have a shoddy plan laid out for what I want to do. It could be a little bit longer. We'll just see how long I have to talk about each of the things that I want to talk about. For starters, though, remember that we are sponsored, brought to you by MyBookie.ag. MyBookie is an online gambling website that will allow you to bet on all of your favorite games. The NBA playoffs are hot. The NHL playoffs are hot. It is April. It is one of the busiest months in sports. May is coming. The MLB will be in full swing. NHL playoffs will be in full swing. The NBA playoffs will still be in full swing. And not only that, the NBA playoffs will be in the best part of them, the second, third round, when the games get a little bit better. Yeah, the Pistons won't be getting blown out by 30 in the second round because they won't be there. Same way the Pacers won't be getting swept out of it. They won't be there. You know, the second round is some of the best basketball that gets played all season long. This year especially should be absolutely electric with some of these matchups that I want to get into today. So remember, go to mybookie.ag, and when you sign up, use promo code DSP. You can double your deposit up to $1,000. They will give you, or excuse me, not double. They will give you a 50% deposit bonus. I don't want to get too excited. They'll give you a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000 if you sign up and deposit $500, they're going to match $250. You sign up and you deposit $1,000, they're going to match $500. You want to do $2,000, they'll match you $1,000. Whatever you sign up and deposit, they will give you 50%, and all you have to do is show your support for Detroit Sports Podcast. Use promo code DSP, and let me help you win some money. Let's go. One thing that I've kind of struggled with as far as doing this podcast on a weekly basis, as opposed to if it were like a 10-minute daily show. And don't get any ideas, John, because that's not necessarily something I have time for either. But one of the things I've been struggling with figuring out how to best bring a gambling show weekly has been getting picks. How do I just handicap? And it's almost like I want to drive you to my Twitter account where a lot of my picks are, but then I worry you won't listen to this. And that's just, there's things that go through my mind when I'm thinking about how can I deliver the best show from a gambling perspective. It's something I'm really going to struggle with, I think, during the summer when sports slow down and it's, just baseball and it's things like that. But I do just want to cover some of the things this week that I think are coming up, and less from just a straight up picks perspective, which, by the way, I did incredibly well. If you do follow me on Twitter, if you do listen to this show and you paid attention, I basically laid it out. Bet the Bucks to cover on the Pistons every single game in this series. Just lay it down. You will win money. If that is all that you bet all year, you will win a ton of money should you just bet the Bucks to cover the Pistons in every game that they play. But over the last 7 days, my picks 22, 13, and 2, plus 86.39 units. I've been doing really well. I find the NBA playoffs to be one of the best times for me to bet as far as the season goes. I think it's it's just the time of basketball that I think I understand the best, that I think I know what to expect the best. And that's where I'm riding a hot streak. It happens with me with the NFL as well. I've had some NFL seasons where I go through the playoffs and I do the individual picks. A couple years ago, I went 11-0. This year with the NBA playoffs, I've gotten every series right. Portland, Oklahoma City, I nailed. I got Houston going over Utah, which that will end tonight. Every series I've nailed it. And now I'm at a point where I'm trying to figure out how best to deliver the second round. And I think the way I want to do it is I just want to break them down right now. And maybe next week I'll offer some individual game picks for the second round. Again, I don't do a ton of hockey betting. Last night I did put money on San Jose straight up to win Game 7 against the Knights, and it was one of the most intense periods of my life, because if anyone watched that game, Vegas, broke out to a 3-0 lead. San Jose came back and went up 4-3. Vegas tied it 4-4, and it took overtime for San Jose to win that game. One of the more intense betting moments of my life. But just from going through the NBA second round, and if you haven't watched the playoffs much this year, I would advise that you start doing that. Last night, Portland and Oklahoma City, the series ended on one of the greatest postseason performances I have ever seen in my entire life. And you'll be hard-pressed to find someone who will tell you otherwise regarding what Damian Lillard did to the Oklahoma City Thunder last night. It was a massacre. It was execution by fire. Like, flames were literally erupting from Damian Lillard's fingertips. Everything he put up was magic. The dude had 50 points on 17 of 33 shooting, 10 of 18 from 3. And by the way, he hit the winning shot at the buzzer from the logo. One of the most electric performances I've seen in the NBA playoffs in my lifetime. It was unreal what he did on the floor last night. But basically, what I want to do is just preview those second round series, like I said. I did Celtics and Bucks. That's the first one I'm going to talk about. I wrote for Hoops Habit. If you go to hoopshabit.com, there's a playoff preview I wrote up there. It is 2,500 words. It is extensive, and it's got a prediction in there. The prediction I put on here is going to be the same as the prediction I put in there. I might talk about it a little differently, just because podcasting is a more free-flowing medium than writing a series preview. I do have Celtics in 6 is my pick, and I want to go over why. Because I just think if you're looking at this series, and I don't know that the betting futures are out. I'm going to check that right now, actually. I know individual game betting isn't, because the series doesn't have a schedule yet, which is another part of why I'm having trouble figuring out exactly how I'm going to give you picks today. So I'm just going to break down the series that are set in stone, and I'm going to give you my picks in them, and I'm going to just kind of see if I can find some futures for you and if there's value in them. The Celtics are absolutely going to be an underdog in the series. By how much, I'm not entirely sure. I would guess they're going to be probably in the plus 200 range, maybe less, maybe plus 145, if I can find that specific bet. But I do think it's the Celtics series to win, and I have a couple reasons for thinking that. One, the first thing I pointed out in the article I wrote was it's going to be Gordon Hayward that's the X factor. The way that he matches up, not against Chris Middleton, who might be the primary defender should Gordon Hayward be moved into the starting lineup, but against the centers, against Nikolai Mirotic and against Brook Lopez. That's going to be the X factor of this series to me. And I know a lot of people are thinking, what do you mean? Why would a wing matching up with a center be the X factor of this series? Well, there's a game back in March. The Celtics played the Golden State Warriors, and Brad Stevens employed one of the most interesting styles of attack that was just absolutely relentless. Through Gordon Hayward, he relentlessly attacked DeMarcus Cousins. And the way he did it was he used his bigs, Baines, Horford, to screen Hayward's defenders off of him, to force Cousins to switch onto Hayward, to force Cousins to make a hard closeout and give Gordon Hayward a really easy look at the rim from the three-point line. He did it against Jonas Jerebko, too. Aaron Baines screened Hayward's defender off. I think it was Jordan Bell got screened off. Hayward had a straight line drive. It might have been Iguodala. Got screened off, and Hayward had a straight line drive on Jonas Jerebko, got into the paint and drew a foul. That's the way I expect the Celtics to attack the Bucks. And Gordon Hayward, make no mistake, he has turned a corner in his health. He is playing better basketball than he has at any point in his life as a member of the Boston Celtics. And I think it's going to come into play, especially in this series, that he will be the X factor. I think as far as who the best player on the floor is, Milwaukee has it. It's Giannis. He's the league MVP for a reason, right? He put up numbers that have never been seen before by anyone not named Shaquille O'Neal. No one in the history of the game has averaged 27 and 13 on with 1.5 blocks on at least 57% shooting, except for Shaq. That's the only player who has ever done that. Like, Giannis is doing things only Shaq has done. That's incredible. The issue is Chris Middleton Kobe? You're missing Malcolm Brogdon. And the Celtics are missing Marcus Smart, and that's going to hurt more in this series than it did against the Pacers, certainly. But the Celtics still played really good defense without him. The Bucks have to go through a sort of guard backcourt by committee through Pat Connaughton, through Sterling Brown, through guys like that who haven't gotten necessarily huge playoff minutes in the past, whereas the Celtics turn to experience. The Celtics go, look, Jalen, you played 30 minutes a night in the playoffs a year ago. We need you to do that again while Marcus Smart's out. Like, they're going to guys who have done this before. Terry Rozier, we need you to do this again. And Terry has gotten his fair share of slander from me. He has deserved it. He had a terrible regular season. In the playoffs, so far through 4 games, he has been really effective. He has found Scary Terry again. And it's not that he's out there drilling step-back threes or willing ridiculous layups into the rim. It's just that he's found consistency in his game, and he's found ways to be really, really impactful on the floor. That's kind of important, especially for the Celtics, to have guys like that who have been in this situation before and are now going back out on the floor to do it again. Whereas the Bucks just won their first playoff series in, 30 years? No one on that roster has been to the second round. No one on that roster has this experience. Mike Budenholzer has this experience, but Mike Budenholzer also has a history of getting run out of the playoffs when it gets to this point in the season. He won 60 games as the coach of the Hawks. He had players playing really well. Joe Johnson, Al Horford, guys like that. They won 60 games. Jeff Teague, if you want to say that. When they were in their prime, Budenholzer had these guys winning 60 games. He's never had a Giannis. That's true. But again, Mike Budenholzer's won 60 games before. He's gotten to this part in the season before. And guess what? Like most Mike Budenholzer teams, he gives up the most wide open threes in the league per NBA.com. The Celtics converted on 40% of their wide open three-point attempts. If you remember back to when the Cavs absolutely destroyed the Hawks in the playoffs, Kyrie and JR launching long threes and hitting them or forcing long rebounds off of them is a big part of why they were able to sink Milwaukee. I think Brad Stevens goes the same route. Like I said, I think Brad Stevens is going to utilize pick and rolls with Horford and Baines to screen Hayward open at the three-point line against a Mirotic and against a Brook Lopez. The same way Kyrie's going to come down taking Damian Lillard deep threes. This is the way you beat this team. I almost want them to go full Rockets and take more threes than twos, because that's how they're going to sink the Bucks. Again, I look at this series and I see Brogdon versus Smart. It's a race to who comes back first. But even if Brogdon comes back first, I don't think the Celtics are missing Smart as much as the Celtics will make the Bucks miss Brogdon. Having a steady hand instead of a committee to be your two guard is huge in a playoff series. It's enormous, and it's incredibly important for the Bucks to get that guy back. Same way it's important for the Celtics to get Smart back. Just maybe not as important because their team defense and their experience can overcome that. And when it comes down to experience, the Bucks have the best player in the series. They don't have the best playoff player in the series. The Celtics do. It's Kyrie Irving. It's the guy who won Game 7 of the NBA Finals in 2016. It's the guy who put up 41 points in Game 5 of that series to keep the Cavs alive. People often forget. Everybody talks about that chase down block. LeBron fans love to bring up how LeBron carried Kyrie. People like to forget how Kyrie was the best player on the floor for 2.5 quarters of Game 5, and he was the reason there was a Game 6. Kyrie Irving is probably the best playoff performer in the Eastern Conference. And I know it's tough because Kawhi Leonard is a finals MVP. But Kyrie against Indiana, it looked effortless, and he put up numbers. The postseason, whatever it is about it, it frees up his game. He's out here calling 37-point performances against the Pacers in the playoffs peaceful. That was a lot of alliteration. But that's how is that peaceful, Kyrie? It's just the way he is. So I think if you look at this series and you really break it down, it's easy to go, Milwaukee has the better roster. And maybe they do. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think you have centers who they space the floor, but they can be played off of it as well. Whereas the Celtics have centers who space the floor and cannot be played off of it. Horford and Baines are two lockdown defenders. Ask Joel Embiid. So I think it's tougher than just the Bucks have Giannis and the Celtics don't. There's more to it than that. There's schemes, there's X's and O's, and I don't think anybody does it better in the playoffs than Brad Stevens. And I've given him my fair share of slander this year too, because his lineups, frankly, were stupid at times. But nobody does X's and O's better than him in the playoffs. Again, ask Joel Embiid. So for that series, I got Celtics in 6. The other series that's set in stone right now would be, Houston and Golden State. I'm going to get to it because it is, even if Houston hasn't won yet. But may there be pie on my face when Houston blows the first 3-0 lead in NBA history. I will willingly take that. But right now, that's set in stone, and I'll get to it. The other conference that is the other series that is actually for sure going to happen, Toronto and Philadelphia. And as much as I would love to see Philly and Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals, because I think it would be a great rivalry series, it would be a great petty series, I don't think it's going to happen. I think Philly is a really good team. I think Toronto is a better team. And I know the Kyle Lowry stuff in the playoffs, but hey, Ben Simmons. Like, he scored 1 point in a game in the Eastern Conference Semis a year ago. This year, game 1, he did not have a great game. And he's played well since, but that doesn't entirely dispel the sins of his past. On the other end of things, the Raptors, well, they don't have a coach that's been there before. First of all, when it comes to Philly and their coaching, Brett Brown is atrocious. I mean, if there is a team that is in dire need of firing their head coach and hiring a guy like Mark Jackson or Jeff Van Gundy, even a Becky Hammon, it's the Philadelphia 76ers. Brett Brown, at times, just absolutely stuns me with the way that he tries to get this team to play. Having a guy like Joel Embiid, one of the most dominant interior players I've ever seen, play three-point line to three-point line is wild. And that's a big part of why Embiid wasn't happy when Butler first came to the team, because Brett Brown had him playing at the three-point line, had him playing in the corner, had him playing everywhere except where Joel Embiid likes to play. He still does that. He has Embiid going three-point line to three-point line. Now, Embiid had, 37 points the other night? And again, this series, I look at Toronto and I look at Toronto and I look at Philly, and I look at what Toronto has in the form of Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol, in the form of guys who can slow down Embiid. You can't stop Embiid, but they can slow him down a little bit. They're guys who can defend at the perimeter. They're guys who can close on stretch bigs. And if Embiid is being asked to play like a stretch big, that's going to be a problem for the Philly. The other issue is you got Tobias Harris for a fairly large price, and you have turned him into Houston Carmelo Anthony. He was playing the best basketball of his career when he left the Clippers. He comes to the Sixers. He started off really well, but ever since, Brett Brown just hasn't had the ball in his hand enough. He hasn't called enough plays for him. I think something that we're seeing is the Sixers assembled this incredible 1-5. It's a starting lineup of Ben Simmons, J.J. Redick, Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid, and you look at this and just go, who can rival that as far as a starting lineup? Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, Jimmy Butler. Who can rival that? Golden State? It's the only starting lineup that has as many names, that has as much talent in the 1-5. The problem is neither of these teams are very deep, but Golden State's been doing it for a while. This year, at mid-season, you threw these 5 guys together, and you're asking them to play styles of basketball that none of them have really been comfortable playing in their life, except Jimmy Butler. You have Ben Simmons defensively playing out of position. And I look at a team that there's no way for them to really guard Kyle Lowry, which Kyle Lowry can guard himself in the playoffs, if we're being honest. That guy, he had 0 points in a playoff game this year too. But I think they're going to struggle defensively against a really good offensive team in Toronto. And again, having a finals MVP, like Jimmy Butler's defense hasn't been good enough this year for me to go, yeah, he's going to slow down Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is playing some of the best basketball of his career, folks. This playoffs, he's been out of his mind. Pulling up at the mid-range, I think Toronto in this series, I think they just win 5 really close games. But I think we're going to look back on a series and go, it wasn't that close. Kind of what we do with the Celtics-Sixers series a year ago, where the Celtics won 5 games and people think it's a gentleman's sweep. They were close games. Nobody looks back and goes, man, that game was close. We just don't. I think Toronto really just pulls away in 5 games and ends this thing kind of quickly to set up a Kawhi Leonard, Kyrie Irving showdown in the Eastern Conference Finals. As much as I want Philly in Boston, I don't think we're going to get it. And I really hope that I'm wrong, because I think it would be one of the more electric series that the NBA could get in a conference finals. Like, to play for a trip to the finals and have a rivalry like that, have pettiness like that. You know, the last time the Sixers beat the Celtics, Terry Rozier said, wow, that was a big win for him. I thought they were going to drop confetti. Give me that in the Eastern Conference Finals. It would be unreal. As far as Portland goes, they will get the winner of Denver and San Antonio. If you're looking at betting a future on them, I think it's a safe play. If they get Denver, they might be a dog, which would be an even bigger value play. Denver scares me a little more because, look, Enes Kanter was able to play against Steven Adams. He was matched up well against Steven Adams because Billy Donovan's an idiot and doesn't know how to use Steven Adams. Like, if you can't figure out how to play Kanter off the floor, that's on you. But if they go up against a team like Denver, Jokic will be able to play Denver off the floor, will be able to play Kanter off the floor, whether his coaching allows for it or not. It's a different type of center than Steven Adams. It's a stretch guy who can pass out of a post, and I think it's a guy who can just expose Kanter on the defensive end of the floor. That scares me for Portland. But with how well Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum are playing right now, their ability as a backcourt tandem to carry this team, the way Kanter, really, as much as I can say he can be played off the floor easier against Jokic than he could against Steven Adams, which is true, he showed an effort and an ability on the glass that I haven't seen out of him in years. He showed an effort defensively that I never thought I would see out of him. Portland is playing way above their head right now. Without Nurkic, with Nurkic, this is exactly where I would expect them to be. Without Nurkic, I thought OKC had a chance at winning that series. They are playing above their heads right now, and I think they can keep doing it. It feels like this is a year where Portland takes a trip to the Western Conference Finals. And if they meet Golden State or they meet Houston, can they give them a run too? I mean, Houston, maybe. Can they give Golden State a run? Maybe. You know, Golden State's showing chinks in the armor this year too. But I look at this series, if they end up playing the Spurs, I don't know that the Spurs have a shot against Portland. If they end up playing the Nuggets, I think the Nuggets stand a better chance just because they have Jokic, who will be able to play Kanter off the floor easier than a Steven Adams or easier than a Jakob Poeltl. I think Portland's going to the Western Conference Finals. Like, Damian Lillard is hitting game winners from the logo. Like, it feels destined. And it's different than the ATO screen off the catch jump shot winner that sank the Houston Rockets in 2014. Lillard walked this ball up the floor to the logo and pulled up in Paul George's face. Paul freaking George, the defensive player of the year. And Lillard dotted his eye from the logo to win the series. I just think they're going to the Western Conference Finals. I don't think it matters who they play, if I'm really being honest. And so if you want to bet a future there, I think Portland offers you a ton of value. As far as Houston and Golden State, I think Houston offers a shitload of value in this series. I think they're going to be fairly disrespected when the lines come out. And to say disrespected, they're going to get a better line against Golden State than probably anyone else would. I would think, like, for a future on this series, if you could find it maybe plus 175, plus 200, if you want to take that, do it. Because I think it has a high... If there's a team that Golden State realistically will lose to, it's Houston. They have shown cracks in the armor. The loss to the Clippers, the way that they kind of struggled with the Clippers to win Game 4, having to come back in the fourth quarter. And I know they ended up winning by 10, but the way that they allowed that team to fight, Golden State can get away with flipping a switch when it's the LA Clippers. They can't when it's James Harden. And the way Harden is playing right now. The problem will be Houston's got to play better on the road. Flat out. They won't be starting 2 games in Houston where they can just run people out of the gym. They have to be better on the floor if they want a chance at winning on the road, if they want a chance at winning this series. Can they do it? I think they can. I think it's a really good bet. I don't know that it will happen. But again, if it does, it's high value. And that's just, I think it's a really, really good bet if you can find it. Again, a little bit shorter of a show. Next week, I'll have more individual picks because next week, hopefully, the schedules will be out. I need the schedules to be out now. I have a life to plan. So I need these schedules out immediately because I'm going to be in front of a TV for all of these games. And I've got a life to plan. So I will see you next week on Wanna Bet. I will see you Monday on the Monday Mashup with Kevin McCann. Look forward to it. Have a great week.